North America. The event here did help democracy because they want to eliminate things that are out of democracy, such as slave trade, or also the Civil War was is something that helped democracy too. Latin America. The events of this region kind of helped democracy because some of them did help democracy but others didn't, such as the Porfiriato. This event kind of helped democracy because at the beginning it destroyed the elections, but then it was created practically the same law that it destroyed. Telling about the other two events, they did help democracy because we leveraged from the power of the Spanish people to create an election system thanks to Mexican independence. Europe. The events in this region didn't help democracy because there was a person that won the absolute power. This person was known as Napoleon Bonaparte, and he didn't help democracy. Africa. The events at this region didn't help much democracy because the same as Europe, people were wars for having absolute power or also the change of empire, and empires are not part of democracy. Middle East. The events on this region did help democracy by not including people wanting to govern. In fact, they want liberty, and that is part of democracy. Asia. This is not help because some events are more having power of another country for beneficence, and that is not part of democracy.
Democracy basically means the government by the people, meaning that the people have the right to choose their own governors or representatives.
Capitalism is a social system based on the principle of individual rights. Politically, it is a system of freedom.
Mexico's independence. On September 16, 1810, a progressive priest named Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla became the father of Mexican independence with a historic proclamation urging his fellow Mexicans to take up arms against the Spanish government, known as the Grito de Dolores. Hidalgo's declaration launched a decade-long struggle that ended 300 years of colonial rule, established an independent Mexico, and helped cultivate a unique Mexican identity. Its anniversary is now celebrated as the country's birthday.
The Panama Canal connected the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. It created an important shortcut for ships. After a canal was constructed, a vessel sailing between New York and California was able to bypass the long journey around the tip of South America. Therefore, the capitalism was developed because they could sell their products to more countries and easy.
The presidency of Porfirio Diaz is known as Porfiriato from 1871 to 1911. After Maximiliano de Habsburgo was dead, Benito Juárez reorganized the government, and then Porfirio Diaz decided to create the Plan de Noria. After the death of Juárez, Lerdo Tejado became president, and Porfirio Diaz created the Plan de Tuxtepec. When Lerdo was in presidency, his troops were defeated, so he quit presidency, and Diaz became president in 1876. He made a better army, and also he created a militar naval school. After his re-election in 1910, he made presidents of national groups that according his politics, and this got a social disagreement.
The Louisiana's purchase was a land deal between the United States and France, in which the U.S. acquired approximately 827,000 square miles of land west of the Mississippi River for $15 million. This little leaven of France possessing herself of Louisiana, it is the embryo of a tornado, which will burst on the countries on both sides of the Atlantic and involve in its effects their highest destinies. As the United States had expanded westward, navigation of the Mississippi River and access to the port of New Orleans had become critical to American commerce.
The Civil War of 1861 determined what kind of nation it would be. The war resolved two fundamental questions: whether the United States was to be a dissoluble confederation of sovereign states or an indivisible nation with a sovereign national government, and whether this nation would continue to exist as the largest slave-holding country in the world.
After the war, a slave labor was not a crucial element for the northern economy anymore. Most northern states passed legislation to abolish slavery. However, in the south, the invention of the cotton gin in 1793 made cotton a major industry and sharply increased the need for slave labor. Tension arose between the north and the south as the slave or free status of new state was debated. In January 1807, with a self-sustaining population of over 4 million slaves in the South, some Southern congressmen joined with the North in voting to abolish the African slave, an act that became effective January.
A watershed event in modern European history, the French Revolution began in 1789 and ended in the late 1790s with the ascent of Napoleon Bonaparte. Like the American Revolution before it, the French Revolution was influenced by Enlightenment ideals, particularly the concepts of popular sovereignty and inalienable rights.
The Napoleonic Wars were a series of conflicts fought between France under the leadership of Napoleon Bonaparte and a number of European nations between 1799 and 1815. The wars between 1792 and 1815 that ranged France against shifting alliances of other European powers and the produced a free French hegemony over most of Europe. These revolutionary wars, which may be convenient be held to have been concluded by 1801, were originally undertaken to defend and then to spread the effects of French Revolution with Napoleon's rise to absolute power.
Military engagement of Napoleonic Wars fought between French troops and Prussians and Saxons at Jena and Oyerstadt in Saxony, modern Germany. In the battle, Napoleon smashed the outdated Prussian army inherited from Frederick II the Great, which resulted in the reduction of Prussia to half its former size at the retreat of Tilsit in July.
The Opium Wars were two wars fought between China and Western countries. The first war was between Great Britain and China. British merchants began smuggling opium into China in order to balance their purchases of tea for export to Britain. Within a few years, other Western powers received commercial and residential privileges, and a second war broke out, following a supposed illegal Chinese search of a British registered ship, the Arrow, in Guangzhou.
The Chinese massacre was a conflict between two competition tanks, also known as gangs. On the evening of October 24, several white constables entered Chinatown to break up an argument between members of the tanks. Whether by anger or accident, a white man ended up dead by gunshot wound. Shortly thereafter, a mob of 500 non-Asian Angelenos began hunting down and assaulting every Chinese they could find.
Europeans had thought India, China, and other countries in East Asia were lands of wealth. The Asians were in fact close to Europeans' standards of living. Asian agriculture was producing harvest 20 times the amount of seed plants, while European harvests were only 8 times or less. China was producing 32.8% in textile manufacturing, particularly cotton. The British had an advantage in steam power. India would have only 1.7% share of the world's manufacturing, China 6.2%, Britain would have 18.5%.
No human rights in Qatar. In Qatar, one of the biggest problems that they have and had is that the human rights are not being respected. There are a lot of migrant workers who have to go away in a fast way from there because they are not being respected. The one that is least respected is the freedom of expression. They have drafted civic crime law.
Ottoman state began as one of the many small Turkish states that emerged in Asia Minor during the breakdown of Empire of Seljuk Turks. The Ottoman Turks began to absorb the other states, and during the reign of Muhammad they and all other local Turkish dynasties. The great Ottoman victories of Kosovo Field and Nikopol placed large part of Balkan Peninsula under Ottoman rule. The Ottoman siege of Constantinople was lifted in the presence of Timur, who defeated and captured Bayezid in 1402. The Ottomans, however,
The
soon
Greek
failed.
Revolution from 1821 to 1832 was an independence of Greek people within the Ottoman Empire. This had the result and consequence of a new independent kingdom of Greece. The rebellion started in the friendly neighborhood, a conspiracy founded in what we call today Ukraine. One of the main causes was the desire of some form of independence among Greeks of all classes.
Fayese Battle. The Battle of Fayese was a decisive battle in the struggle that led to the Ashanti Empire replacing the Nkira as the dominant power among the Twi-speaking Akan peoples. Prior to this battle, the Denkirani Ndim Gyankari thought he was doing well in the war, having driven Asante forces from Adunkra, Awatem, and Aputoyonga. However, this was all part of Osei Tutu's plan to ambush the forces of Denkira. The red locust is one of the most important pests in southern Africa. Red locust plagues are known to originate from a few small outbreak areas, where, during requisition periods between plagues, they occur as pairs populations of individual solitarious phase. Livingstone's first great journey. In 1853, Livingstone is provided with 27 men by a friendly chiefman at Sheshke on the Zambezi. With them, he heads off west into unknown territory to find a way to the coast. 6 months later, after appealing difficulties from disease and hostile tribes, the group arrives at Luanda on the Atlantic coast. There are British ships at the harbor, whose captains offer Livingstone passage home to instant fame, but he insists that he must take his men back to Seshke.